you might want to get involved with, and that's alcohol.
Oh,
it
yes.
goes up, and there's a massive structural change to prices from today. People are going to feel it, because it's pretty significant in lots of your favourite tipples.
Yeah, so the structural change is going to be that the alcohols with highest alcohol content, so fortified wines, some things that had previously been under tax were going to be, you know, more rationalised, taxed higher. But it also means that some alcohols, like sparkling wines, will actually be relatively cheaper in supermarkets, at least. And what it also means is that pubs, places like that serve draft beer, that duty is being frozen at the moment. So it will become cheaper to drink in a pub than buying some beers from the supermarket. And I think that's quite a positive direction to go into.
Good for the pubs, good for their
business.
Pubs.
And also it encourages lower alcohol drinking per consumption as well, because it will be relatively cheaper.
Biggest rise in duties for 50 years.
Of course. And
10.1%, yeah. I mean, the government is hoping we look at the structure, and if it's simpler, I quite like the idea of simpler and straightforward.
Can I just say...
But I have a hangover when I try and understand it.
You should be a Treasury official, Kevin, because the Treasury at official level, they always say to Chancellors, make it simpler. And we've had this, you know, this is the first big change in duties for over 100 years. It's always been really complicated and messy, and they are simplifying it and making it more rational. But in so doing, unless you're going to spend loads of money at the same time, and they're raising money here, it's really hard to simplify something without ending up with some very, very big losers. And if you know, they've managed to combine the Pub Association, the Wine and Spirits Association and the Scottish Whisky Association all coming out and saying, we're being clobbered. This is quite an unusual thing for a Chancellor to be hitting everybody at the same time.
Well, remember the pasty tax, where George Osborne, when he was Chancellor, I think, was it 2011 or 2012? 2013, as late as that.
I think, maybe I'm
no, I'll bow to you.
I was there.
On that, I know. I mean,
we all do.
I was just writing about it. But there again, he said, right, there's VAT on hot takeaway food. People are buying hot pasties in Greggs and other places, but they're not paying VAT on it. So let's slap VAT on it.
Treasury said, let's rationalise it and simplify it.
All hell let loose.
All hell.
Yeah. But can I just say that when it comes to alcohol, I don't really have a problem with our tax system kind of incentivising lower alcohol consumption. I can see why the industry groups have a problem with it. But for pubs, as we said, it is relatively better for them than for supermarkets. But also, you know, alcohol is not exactly a thing that we should be consuming in large amounts anyway. I mean, obviously, people... in journalism, we're going for kitty glass houses. But the point is, you know, it's not exactly like this is something that... It's a necessity of people's lives.
Yes, it's not perhaps as painful as some of the basics of food.
Exactly, food inflation.
But on the other hand, for some people, it's not about the quantity, it's about the cost of one drink, which may be very painful, isn't it?
On food, I'm trying to remember, isn't caviar exempted from that? Wasn't there some...
It sounds like the sort of thing... I don't know.
I don't know either. We'd have
to your knowledge.
Well, we'll have to all go for sparkling wines.
Enormous consumption.
That's the alternative. You know,
it is
other things
though.
are becoming more expensive.
The reason why the government can do this now is because for the last, you know, whatever it is, 40 years, we couldn't change our alcohol duties because they were set by the EU. So they have chosen to now do this simplification and to make it more rational. I think most people who voted Brexit thought if we're going to be finally allowed to change our alcohol duties, this would mean we were going to pay less.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see what that...
the opposite.
You mean a Brexit government has taken back control, a whack a big extra duty?
I think objectively speaking, that is what's happening.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cindy?
Well, I mean, as I say, pubs are going to be, you know, not hit as badly by this as supermarkets. You know, I don't have a problem with people going to pubs rather than buying beer.
Well, the Pub Association has come out and said they don't like it.
Well, yeah, because tax rises are never pleasant anyway.
That's true.
But, you know, if you're a consumer, you're choosing between supermarket beer or pub beer, then, you know, you're going to go for the relatively cheaper one. But, of course, yeah, it will be interesting, Ed, to see what Brexit voters think of this current legislation, because the government has tried to make that point. This is the Brexit freedom, but it's not necessarily a positive freedom for some consumers.
Freedom to increase.
Our Prime Minister is teetotal.
Yes.
Does that make a difference?
I'm not sure
Does
it
that
does.
impact it?
I'm not sure it does, really. I mean, as Ed says, I think it's a Treasury thing to try to rationalise things. I mean, Rishi Sunak has never kind of tried to legislate for people just because he doesn't have their experiences. I think he hasn't a lot of experiences other than normal people have.
He's unlikely to clobber our non-doms, is he, really?
Well, I mean, I think that's more of an economic argument there.
Shall we talk? There he is there, look, pulling a pint, probably the first one he's ever pulled and didn't go on to drink. Very quickly, actually, just because it's a lovely picture, can I show you not that pub, but the wonkiest pub in the country?
I should sit up straight.
Let's have a quick look at it. Yes, sit up straight. You might feel like you've had a drink or two at breakfast time. It's an 18th century pub dubbed Britain's wonkiest. The locals found out that it had to be sold, not because it's leaning, but because they couldn't keep it going. So they might be very pleased with the draft beer freeze. And now somebody's bought it out and is going to keep it going. I would be alarmed by that, I think, sitting in there. You would feel a little bit like you'd had one too many, wouldn't you? But it's very cute.
Is it structurally safe? I mean, you'd assume that the floor is not leaning at that same angle.
No,
as the
you're right.
are.
The walls are just leaning, but
the walls
not.
are leaning. But then how does the floor... I'd love to be inside that.
I'm just thinking it's going to be very tricky if they've got a pool table.
Yeah,
all the balls just going into one pocket.
Advantage.